set a few notes over here just in case. And I want to thank Dr. Parikh and everyone for having me and for Total Health Conferencing. I'm just really pleased to be here today. And I hope that this will be a useful talk for you all. Knowing that a keynote down to 30 minutes, I was like, okay, I can do this. So I'm going to try to get some really good take-home things so you can leave this with some things you can utilize versus going over all of the research around this, because we could have a whole conference on just that. So disclosures, I have no financial disclosures, but warning, I have a big disclosure of I'm still a work in progress when it comes to all of this, right? I don't think we can ever say, oh yeah, I'm done, I'm good with boundaries, priorities, like I've got it locked down, no changes. So it was really useful to me in preparing this talk and looking through some of the research and looking through some of the things to say, what am I doing a good job at? Where do I need to tweak things? Because yeah, we can all use a little polish here and there, right? Knowing about women and kind of our giving nature, I think, is really important. So I love this quote from Diane Marychild, that a woman is the full circle. Within her is the power to create, to nurture, and to transform. And I think what Dr. Reynolds was talking about and the work that she's doing there was really transformative, right? And it's something that we kind of have in us. We're really good at listening and connecting to the needs of others. And sometimes we need to re-practice that listening and connecting to those needs of ourselves. So this is going to kind of tie into what I want to kind of go into. One of those things being priorities. Okay, our priorities are boundaries. What do we do with this? Well, as I was researching and looking at this, I came across this concept that I thought was actually kind of funny. Is, we've made some wonky language over time. The fact that we've taken this word, priority, which means something given meriting attention before competing others, before any alternatives. And we, as a society, have made it plural. It was never intended to be a plural word, right? Priority, stop, cold hard stop, no, nothing further. And yet we talk about, what are your priorities? We're already setting you up for failure. We're already saying there's no way you've lined this up to being one thing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say, what are your priorities, right? We're acknowledging we haven't figured this out. We haven't gotten it. And everything cannot be number one. This is really hard for me. I'm a mom of twins. Nobody can be number one. Right? And everybody's competing for it all the time, right? But I'm good at this, and let me, mommy, this, yeah. So everything can't be number one at the same time, right? Everything can't be the number one at the same time, right? So I think that's one of the keys we're going to talk about a little bit more. And when we think about priorities, just like I'm saying that everything can't be number one at the same time, when you think about your priority, it allows you to reassess your value in the moment, right? In the moment. When I'm with a patient, so I should have said I'm a health psychologist by training, and I direct the oncopsychology program right now at the University of Kansas Cancer Center. When I'm with a patient and we're talking about, okay, earlier this week, talking with a patient with metastatic pharyngeal cancer, just really having a hard time. She has had a tracheostomy, she's on a feeding tube, she's gone through chemo, immunotherapy, she's caring for her two 90-plus-year-old parents in the home, and she is mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually exhausted. And I needed to find out from her, and her values in the moment was doing more chemo and more treatment, what she found to be most valuable. And she said, Dr. Dwyer, if I could just feel better for a day, I'd go fishing with my sister, and I'd be okay with that. So I said, well, what do you need to be able to go fishing with your sister? I probably need to go back on steroids, and I have to get my fishing license. I was like, okay, well, I think myself I can get in touch with your nurse practitioner that you saw this morning, see if we can't get the steroids. We might have to call your sister about the fishing license, though. I can't do that for you. But she was able to peel through what was important to her in the moment, and it was more time with her family and doing something that she found relaxing and enjoyable. We also use boundaries, which we're going to talk about the differences, to highlight what is important. So when I'm saying priority, I want us to think of like value, what is so precious and so important to us. And in that moment, even though I love my kiddos more than, your mom's in here, like that extra level of like video game you leveled up of like, I didn't even know that level of love existed before I had children. And now like, whoa, that's crazy. In that moment with that patient, I wasn't thinking about my kids at all. I will admit that. Now, if my school had called and I had to switch gears and think about number one, that would have shifted around, right? But I was kind of focused in on that. And that's okay to give ourselves permission to be in that moment fully, to be mindful. Don't drop the wrong ball. Has anyone come across this before? All right. Well, I don't want to read from stuff very often, but this is a worthy quote, I think. So the best I could find, because I've seen this attributed to a few different people, but in digging around, it seems that it comes back to Brian Dyson, who's a former CEO of Coca-Cola. And Mr. Bryson, in talking with at their annual conference, he gave this example. Imagine life as a game in which you're juggling 5 balls in the air. You name them: work, family, health, friends, and spirit. And you're keeping all of these balls in the air. You will soon understand that work might be a rubber ball. If you drop it, it will likely bounce back. But the other balls, family, health, friends, and spirit, are made of glass. If you drop one of these, they might be irrevocably scuffed, marked, nicked, damaged, or even shattered. They will never be the same, right? So sometimes we have to think about that. But I want to take Mr. Dyson's comment there, because it can be a little heavy, and back it up and say, when you think about what's a priority to you and you're mindful of your values in the moment, what's a rubber ball and what's a glass ball might be always shifting for you, right? Might be always shifting. In that moment where you're really working on a project and you're staying late and everything, maybe your friend ball has to bounce and you have to say, hey, I am so sorry. I'm gonna have to take a rain check on happy hour tonight, and I know we've been trying to connect. I will make it up to you, but I've gotta get this grant written. I've gotta get this proposal sent in, right? And a good friend will say, I get it, you're working so hard and I'm so proud of you. Bounce, right? And a great fan will show up with a bottle of wine and some Chinese food at the end of the night and say, how did the grant go, right? And bounce, right? You drop the grant ball, shatter, right? So I don't think any one of these things that's important to you, not priority, but those top level, that top shelf values, you can reassess in the moment. What's the thing I can drop right now? Or I might need to give myself some grace to at least set it down gently, right? And then what is the thing I need to hang on to and I need to put my focus and my energy into? So, what if I told you that you could do something that would improve your focus, your emotional well-being, your identity, your productivity, your respect, self-esteem, and your value cohesion? Just this one simple thing. Maybe you've seen an ad for it on Instagram or something right now, right? You're like, yes, I would like to have all of those things. And I said, and it's going to involve saying no to people you care about and respect, and projects you're passionate or at least interested in some of the time. Oh, really? And somewhat, but it doesn't have to feel that way, right? So I think it's important when we're thinking about boundaries, and a lot of this is based off the work of Marsha Linehan, who is a psychologist who developed dialectical behavioral therapy. I think one of her concepts that has become mainstream and is so great that it is moving there is, instead of this or business, like this or that, we tend to think I can love my, I like this or I like that. It has to be is and both, right? Motherhood teaches us and both really well. I can love my children so much and be really annoyed with them, right? It's okay. They can live together. I can want to get it all done and recognize that might be too much. And saying no to one thing is allowing me to have the energy, time, and attention to the other things I love. and. That'll work, right? I think we think of boundaries as separation, which they are to a degree, but they don't have to be excluding growth and improvements, right? So what we know is that when people improve their boundaries, when they start to recognize what's the glass ball and they hold on to it tightly, they feel more focused. They feel more honed in on the things that they want to do. They feel this value cohesion. So value cohesion might sound a little wonky, but it's basically saying, do the things that you think are the most important to you, are you living your life so that those things are together? So that maybe anyone around you, people who know you, would be able to identify what's most important to you by how you spend your time, by what things you're interested in, by how you spend your energy, by what you do to educate or grow yourself, right? So it's how do we align those things? A lot of our mental health struggles sometimes are emotional is when those things get too far apart. This is so important to me and I never get to do it. And here I am spending all this time charting. Oh, you guys, right? Charting and charting. Oh, that's not my favorite thing. But patient care is, okay. So how can I line those things up? They feel a little bit closer or whatever. Our self-esteem and confidence, when you can say no to someone in a respectful way, you kind of go, okay. I think so many of us as women in professional settings, we're kind of taught and raised up to people please, right? Say yes. Don't miss an opportunity. Say yes with a smile and be kind and be courteous to everyone and make everybody else happy, right? So if you're a people pleaser, you don't have to stop people pleasing, but I want you to remember, you're a people too. You need to be pleased. You need to be happy with what you're doing, not just the other person, right? And it doesn't have to be an either or. Because if you feel like you're giving more than you're receiving, resentment starts to grow. You start to avoid that email chain about that project that you didn't really want to help on, right? Like all of those things start to trickle out. Now it starts to be very, kind of have this rub to it that's not comfortable, right? But when we say no, we kind of put our shoulders back. I feel more confident, right? We have that cohesion. We feel more respect for ourselves, and others are likely to respect us too, right? You guys might remember this from way back, this commercial with little Mikey, right? And they'd say, oh, give it to Mikey. He'll eat anything, right? You don't want to have the reputation that you can be dumped on. Oh, just give it to Megan. She'll take care of it. Just give it to so-and-so. They'll take care of it. They always do. They won't say no, right? That's not respecting you. It feels like you're needed, but sometimes it's actually not respecting your time, what other things you have on your plate, and also saying no helps you to both feel respect, and you're going to start to get it from others because they're going to recognize, okay, this person isn't just receiving everything. They are participating, right? They're participating back and forth in what's important to them. Your productivity then has a chance to increase because you're not spread too thin, right? I almost think about like the peanut butter. We want to not spread it out all the way. We want to have a nice bite that feels good. We start to recognize our identity. Something I really liked hearing in Dr. Reynolds' talk was about that specialty. What is it we want to do? Narrowing it down. And by setting up our boundaries, we really start to do that. We really start to say, this is the thing that I am good at. And I don't know if you guys have come across the Ikigai model. It's a Japanese word meaning kind of the intersection of what I'm passionate about, what I'm good at, because sometimes those things line up, sometimes they don't, right? What the world needs more of, and what I can get paid for. Whoa, that sounds like threading the needle, right? But hopefully if you're passionate about your field and what you're doing, that's true. And so you feel more productive, you have that identity to go forward because you're honing in on what you're passionate about, and then people go, oh, when there is a project that goes right to what you do well, they come to you. When it doesn't, they don't. And so, oh my gosh, now the boundaries kind of take care of themselves, right? You don't have to keep telling people. So what can this look like? And how can we practice saying no in ways that feel a little better if you're not used to saying no? So I kind of broke it down. So this is a strategy that I often use with folks or in mentoring the fellows that I work with and mentoring junior faculty and so forth is kind of the 4 Ds. Decrease. So that is saying not so much, right? Maybe I can commit to consulting one time for this project at a meeting, but I can't commit right now to a recurring meeting on my calendar. And if that's what you need or if that will fit, then I can definitely give that, but maybe I can't commit to more than that, right? And sometimes I think this, when we say things like all of these, you know, what's that time commitment? This is one of the best things to ask when someone comes to you with a new idea or project wants to bring you in on something, asking, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about what that time commitment looks like? You will be shocked, kind of, at how many people go, oh, well, I hadn't really thought about that. Great, totally understand you're getting this project kind of like conceptualized. Well, do you want to try to meet in a couple weeks after you've thought about that and we can determine if I have the time for it in my schedule too? It's okay to put it back on them, right? Because they need to define this for themselves, for the project as a whole, and it's so often we just rush into it and we don't think, what am I asking the other people? What am I asking of this? Or for yourself, if you're asking someone else, it's great to lead with this. I'm asking for X commitment from you. Is that something you can give? Then they can more honestly say yes or no, right? Or I can only commit to this amount of time. I can only commit to probably working on this for the next 6 months because then I have X coming up. Or I can do this piece of the task if you break it up. I'm happy to run the analyses on this, but I just can't be, and I can't do some writing right now for you. I'm just slammed. That's okay. You can say, this piece I'll take, the rest of it, no thank you. Delegating, not dumping, delegating, mindful with it, right? So that looks like thinking, and this is how, you know, I can't think of whose quote it is, I hate that, about, you know, women lifting other women. There's kind of a place in a certain place for women who don't lift other women, right? The inverse is true too. We all want to lift each other up. So this is a delegation is a great way to do that, especially for your junior colleagues, your fellows, other people, new nurses, to say, you know what, this really fits with Hannah's expertise. She's been doing a research project on this, and I know she'd be really excited to get involved. Let's talk with her about it, right? This is a chance to elevate people around you, right? It can be a giving. If you're interested in learning more about this, a great book and great kind of author who studies this area, Adam Grant, if you ever have come across his book, Give and Take, this is an example of giving. When delegation is done in a thoughtful manner to help someone else and give them opportunities. I think sometimes we think delegating is giving up control, and then it will feel negative and you will not want to do it. When delegating is giving opportunities for growth to other people that you care about, it gets a lot easier. So delegating to lift and bring other people along, or it may be reaching out. Gosh, you know, sometimes there are opportunities, especially when we're thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you're sitting at a table and we're talking about those things and the table all looks too much alike, that's a good time to stop and say, we need to pull this person in because they need to be a part of this conversation. So delegating is really about getting the right people involved, and that might not always be you, and knowing when that's not you is important. Delaying the deadline, so we're saying not that much, not me, not now. I should have the capacity for this next quarter. If this isn't a rush, you know, let's get back to it. The important difference, and again, this is a mindset thing to a degree, between delaying the deadline and just procrastinating is we want to set a new deadline. We're actually going to name it and set those expectations to come back to it versus just, oh, I'll get to that. Does that make sense? So we're not just going to push it off. We really do want to reestablish the deadline. I really think next month is more realistic for that. I've got to put out this fire, but I'm putting it in my calendar or whatever. So we're coming back to it with a set expectation. And detach. Sometimes it's okay, not my circus, not right, to say, I don't feel like this is part of my responsibilities, or I'm having a hard time seeing where this fits into my role, or I'm having a hard time, I'm unclear how I can fit this in given these other priorities that we've talked about. priorities, right, that we've talked about me doing, especially if this is coming from someone ahead of you. It's okay to say, okay, you've given me all these tasks. I need a little guidance. I need some clarity because in the time allotted, I just don't see this really working out great, right? And those open conversations often will end a little bit better. So not that much, not me, not now, not responsible. Quick and easy ways to say no, even though no in and of itself, right, is a complete sentence. She was saying it with me. Yes, thank you. We like to qualify our no's no, but, right, which negates us. So I think some of these strategies can be ways to identify how to make it effective versus just saying, oh, I'm so sorry, but, and notice there are no apologies listed. You don't have to be sorry. You didn't do anything wrong. Remember, the door is unlocked. We get ourselves locked in with all these shoulds. I should do that. I should be on the PTA, and I should be on the tenure committee, and I should be having more clinical RVUs, and I should be, and I should. Stop shitting on yourself, right? Ooh. Goes nowhere fast. Nowhere good, at least, right? So there's a great story, a little short story. I don't know if anyone has read Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed. If you have read it, read it again. If you haven't read it, go grab it. It's awesome. It's fantastic. I read it, and I went to give it to a girlfriend, and I said, I'm sorry. And I went and bought her a copy, and I gave that copy to her because I said, I'm not giving up this book. I'm going to read it again too many times. And she tells the story of a friend of hers who went to this hot yoga class, right? So this was a little while back when that was much more the rage, pre-Peloton, you know. And the woman's like, oh, I don't really want to go to this class. Like, I don't really think I'm going to like it. So she's at this hot yoga class, and she's just miserable, right? She's just miserable the whole time. She feels nauseous. It's just not a good experience for her at all. And at the end of the class, as soon as they do the final pose and everyone's resting and the instructor says the class is over, she goes bolting through the door, right, and runs to the bathroom to get sick because she's, not in a good place there. And as she hits the door and goes towards the bathroom, she realizes the door was unlocked the entire time, right? She didn't have to stay there. She made herself with well, I should try it and I should do this. It's this new thing. It's supposed to be so good for me. And she was miserable the whole time. And so if there are things that you need to cut loose that you're miserable all the time in, check to see, is that door unlocked? Is your own should the only thing holding it closed? And you can change that should a little bit by saying, is this something I want? Something I can do? Is this something I can let go, right? A lot of times it tells us a little bit more. Is it something I want to do? Is it something I can do? Is it something I can let go of? The door might just be unlocked, and all you have to do is step through it. So boundaries also empower us. We learn more about ourselves. We learn more about others. At first, you might learn the people who really benefited from the lack of your boundaries, right? In psychology, this is called an extinction burst. So in operant conditioning, right? Stimulus, response, stimulus, no response, what the heck, stimulus, right? We've all seen this happen before, probably, if there's ever been a vending machine near you, right? Put in the money, push the button, Snicker bar. Great, put in the money, push the button, Snicker bar, great. Put in the money, push the button, no Snicker bar. What the heck, right? People are slamming on it, they're reaching their hand, they're complaining to everyone who walked by, this damn machine ate my dollar, I didn't get my Snicker bar, this is awful, right? So if people around you are used to dumping on you, and you say no, they're gonna push a little harder. Well, wait, the last time I put in my money and I pushed the button, I got the Snicker bar. What gives, right? They might push a little harder. That's often going to tell you who was benefiting a lot from your lack of boundaries. And as you shape your behavior, they'll reshape their behavior behind you, right? We teach people how to treat us through that a little bit. It's not your fault, not a blame thing, but an empowerment. If you don't like how it's going, you can shape it a little bit. It allows us to be more mindful and aligned with what's important to us. Slowing down a little bit, catching our breath. Is this what I want to do? Is this how I want to spend my time? Is this what's most important to me in this moment? And that's going to change because you're only in this moment for this moment, right? So don't worry if it changes. It's supposed to. A sense of connection when we know what's important to us. Then we can connect and connect more openly because I've set that boundary, and now when I'm with someone, I'm not thinking about that other thing because I've set it aside now, right? So it kind of frees us up for that sense of connection that we so much want. And gosh, if anything through these past couple years we learned, we need that, right? We need that sense of connection to each other. And I think also that boundaries can empower us to see our accomplishments and see what we're able to do and not feel as spread thin and scattered, to feel more focused and in control, right? Boundaries feel like we're going to give it up. Really, it's going to hone it and focus it like a laser beam a little bit more. So some starting blocks. This comes from the work of Dr. Drummond, and there is a website. Hold on, I will shift over here. On HappyMD, so they do some good like wellness tools on there. And so what are some things that you can do? So these are some ideas, right? So the starting block ideas here are identifying in your personal life one thing you can do to try to decrease your stress or strain, dropping it down, and one thing you can do to increase your recharge, something that really helps lift you up, helps you feel empowered, helps you feel engaged, that you like, you know, the stuff that jazzes you up. So you might have to, you know, maybe I am just burnt out on cooking. It's just like so much. So maybe trying a meal prep service for a little while. One less thing I have to think about. That mental task, holy cow, I feel like the food prep and knowing like, okay, what's in the cupboard, what's in the fridge, what can I make with that? What do we have planned? Like there's just so much mental work to that. So maybe this is a great idea if you can try it. Maybe not for every night, but maybe a couple nights a week. That's easier, right? Or tag teaming with a partner of like, I'm gonna take Tuesday nights, can you take Thursday nights? We'll try to make whatever it is we're making enough to cover the following night. Now you're not doing it all the time. So we're trying to drop down something that's stressful or not enjoyable to you. And then increasing that recharge. Gosh, our friends, we never see each other, we're all so busy, but can we commit to just getting together once a quarter, or maybe once a month, or whatever feels reasonable, and start getting it actually on the books, and don't leave the next dinner until you have the one after, you know, while you're sitting there waiting for the check. Okay, what's the next quarter? Maybe you can even, you know, alternate. We have a couple we like to go out with, and we kind of alternate of, okay, we'll pick the restaurant, we'll make the reservation, then the next time, you pick the restaurant, you make the reservation after we decide on the date. And it's something to kind of look forward to. And then when I know it's our turns coming up, I like have fun researching, okay, what's the place, where are we gonna go? We're gonna go back to one of our favorite places, we're gonna a new place. And that's recharging because I know I have it to look forward to, that social time. If you guys haven't figured out, I'm a little bit of an extrovert, so I need that. And in our professional life, what that might look like. So decreasing our stress or increasing our recharge. Setting an email time window. Okay, I've been practicing this. I'm not great at it. This is a very much work in progress. Setting a time in your schedule to check your email instead of checking it constantly all the time, right? We think we're great at multitasking. We're not as good as the neuroscience behind this keeps coming back time and time again. We're not as good as we think we are. We're actually making more errors. Things are taking us longer to do because we're bouncing. It's like a tennis match, right? We're like bouncing all over. And I say that because I've noticed my own tennis match in that I thought I loved him and I kind of do, like the dual monitor. Anybody got the dual monitor set up? Oh yeah. Like, but you go like, it's almost, I'm like, how did I live life before I had a dual monitor, right? Like it's awesome. But I usually have, you know, email on this screen, patient charts on this screen, the EMR on this screen, and oh yeah, I got it all. But I'm like playing this ping pong ball back and forth, and it's hard to focus on, oh, did I respond to that email, or did I just think I responded to that email while I was actually reading the chart for the next patient I'm gonna see, and then I'm back over here. So setting a time in your schedule to check your email and respond or flag it or whatever, versus constantly having it up or open in the ping, woo, right? Man, we're like Pavlov's dog. The ping of the new email comes on, and we go and we check it immediately, and then go, dang it, I wish I had more control. So maybe you have to leave it closed until your set time. I have seen that I've gotten a little bit more proficient or faster with doing some other tasks when I'm not doing that, but I'm not all the way there yet, so I gotta work on this. But I will say when I've done it, it does seem to be helpful, but bad habit of opening the email all the time, right? Maybe increasing that recharge of, once a week trying to eat lunch. You don't have to eat a long lunch, even a short one, not in front of a screen. When I asked my team about this, and I said, okay, when's the last time you guys ate your lunch not in front of a screen during the work week? The only thing we could come up was probably in 2019 when we went out for lunch as a team that one time. Oh man, pre-COVID, right? So it might not be much, we might just step away for a minute. That could be helpful. Thinking of other things, thinking about ways to have conversations about the meaningful nature of our work. That's one of the best things you can do for burnout and compassion fatigue. Talk to someone, talk to a colleague about what was a meaningful interaction you had with a patient today or this week, right? Doesn't have to be a lot of time, but what might recharge you, increase your engagement. So summarizing here really quickly about boundaries. And I tried to show kind of two different examples of boundaries. We've got the beautiful, perfect white picket fence or whatever that kind of delineates space that's mine. This is protected. It protects me and what's important to me. But also I wanted to show the velvet rope of the red carpet gets rolled out. It also says to me and to people around me, this is my most valued thing right now. This is so important to me. I think it's the coolest, it's amazing. It enhances our expectations for ourselves and others to see what's important to us, reminds us of that. And all in all, respect to ourselves, respect to what's important to us, respect to others too. I hope some of these will be helpful for you. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. And I also want to leave some time if folks have questions, comments on any of these things. I'm definitely happy to take them. Thank you.